Well, the Orville delivered yet another pretty good episode. I don't think it's as good as the previous one, but pretty good. There is something of a flaw in the plot, I think, but overall, pretty solid sound episode. So they deal with the Kalon, their history in this one, and they do it in a way where you're not quite sure that you're seeing the past, but they deal with the people who developed the Kalon and as they were meant to be servants for them, and then as they were becoming sentient, the people became abusive towards them, and they detail the whole story of that, which developed the viewpoint of the Kalon to all organic life, and so that's why they don't trust them and all that sort of thing. And it's all it's pretty well done in telling that narrative, and then we meet this other Kalon who has emotional feelings and whatnot, and that's because he's been reprogrammed, really. But it's a method by which it can achieve to experience emotions on par with humans and aliens and all that. And then, of course, this becomes an option seemingly for Isaac, but it doesn't work out. And of course, it's sad in the sense that all the while you're thinking, oh, this is some Kalon plot, that this would be an infiltrator and lures Isaac into undergoing this procedure to get emotions. But actually it's a way to weaponize him and reprogramming. And who knows, they may follow up on this, and that's what it is. But it doesn't appear to be, at least in this episode. So Claire's all excited by this aspect of this possibility, and so Isaac says, well, all right, I'll give it a shot. And so they do it, and of course he's feeling emotion. He takes Claire on a date, and woos her and all this stuff and dances with her and everything. And then all of a sudden it stops. And she's like, well, what's the problem? And he said, it's gone, and he's back to being the way he was. And they go in and they realize that the reason it worked on the other Kalon is because he's an older Kalon. He's an original one that was created by the alien race that created them in the first place. And whereas Isaac was made later by the Kalons themselves. And so he doesn't have the workings that makes the programming work. And they say, well, there is a way to do it, but I could fix him to retrofit him to be like the other Kalon. But the problem is that would erase all his memories. And then they're just like, oh man, that's stuff. And then Isaac says, well, if that would make it better for you, and it's just, she's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because that robs you of everything you are and all this stuff. And the interesting thing, of course, what are they showing here? There's a lot of scenes there which is Isaac already does have feelings. He just doesn't know he does. And that's the thing about it. What exactly is love? Well, it's how you feel about, but what is it? And, that's why you can't quite define it in an absolute quantitative way for something like a robot to understand. And he's experiencing it in his own way, but he's becoming that because it's obvious the way they've done the story. Isaac obviously cares for the crew. He turned against the Kalon. He can argue with, this was actually a logical conclusion or whatnot, but not really. You would have stayed with the mission. And, of course, Claire, most of all, he goes the extra mile for Claire. He'll help out the others. He'll obey Mercer's orders and all that type of stuff. But for Claire, it's different. It's more, he cares. He doesn't understand that he does, but he does. And that's all there really is to it. He just doesn't understand it. But it's clearly there. And just the immediate push to just, go ahead and wipe my memories because that'll fix everything. And, she says, well, he wouldn't be you anymore and that sort of thing. All of that. But at the same time that he keeps trying to help Claire with whatever it is in his way. That's what he's doing. He's trying to help her for what she wants. But the reason he's doing it is because, in his own way, he cares about her. So it's not going to work in the normal way. But that's the roundabout way it goes. As for whether or not the other Kaylon, Timus they called him, is actually a Kaylon spy, well, maybe not. But you can't help but think that there was something afoot going on. Because the other plot of the show was, once again, they're reaching out to another alien culture in the hopes of gaining new allies to help them, in their war with the Kaylons. And one would wonder if the Kaylons were trying to disrupt that or something with this other story, but appears not to be the case. So this one, and this is where something of a stumble and the flaw in it, somewhat, in that they decide to approach this culture because it's a super matriarchal culture. The men are just basically property, or males rather, for this planet. Now, Star Trek Next Generation did this as well, but here their mission is to create this alliance with them, and so they're worried that they won't understand their culture, where the men aren't treated that way, so they pretend that they treat their men the same way. So Kelly has to be the captain and all this stuff, and once again they bring the comedy back in here, not quite to the extent it was originally, but still it's nice to have it. There's some funny moments and stuff in it. But eventually they get found out, and then they try to explain it, and they reach an understanding and a potential for them to have negotiations and talk about a potential alliance and all that. However, the idea to just do this where they lie to them and say that, hey, we're going to ease you into it, is just such a stupid idea. The threat of the Kaylon should have been enough to bring you to the table. And it's like, we don't have to, agree on our different cultures. Your culture's yours. And they've already dealt with this with the Mocklans. And that's what they're saying. Well, this is just the Mocklans in reverse. They haven't actually gotten rid of all their males. They just have them as a second-class citizens of their society and all that sort of thing. But it's kind of the same idea, where this is a female-dominant world and culture and whatnot. But to lie to them like that, which ended up insulting them even more than realizing their culture is very different. Plus, they're spacefaring people. They were aware of the Mocklans and all that, so they know there's other cultures out there that aren't like their own. They thought, well, if we're more like them, they'll be more agreeable to the alliance. But how long were you going to be able to maintain that? So it was a dumb idea. So I guess the only point is that, they fell back on being the misfit crew of the Union. But it's a bit of a stretch that they would even bother with it. It created some moments to have some, humor in it. But it seems like they could have done some of the jokes where this woman wants to claim Mercer as her own and that type of thing, and it's kind of silly. It could have done it anyway, even without lying to them. A scene like that or whatever. And then finally the other thing is, the romance with Lamar and Tala, and of course with her super strength, the sex is really rough. And they keep trying to keep it secret. Certainly he does, so he just goes to the sick bay with a broken arm and lies and says, I've been doing some training in the simulator, and the doctor's like, you need to be more careful and all that. And then the next time it's a broken leg. And then finally they keep struggling. It's like, we want to be together, and yeah, we do, and then finally they just have to break up because he's all beaten up, his eyes are swollen. And so the comedy's back, but and still it's kind of sad, they wanted to be together, but they're not really physically compatible unless he gets super strength or something. Of course, it was interesting because he said, that he and Isaac were kind of at the opposite ends of this problem. He has the superstructure for it, but he doesn't have any of the emotions and everything. He has all the emotions, but he doesn't have the body for it. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was a good episode. It was fun, and it was certainly a good thing to have the comedy in it. It's not as dominant as it was previously, but it's not totally gone as the earlier episodes did. So I think that's certainly an improvement on these. So another pretty good, solid episode for the Orville.